Going into the year of our Lord 2021, when looking at global events through the lens of Mark 13 news, be sure what you're focusing on coincides with chapter 13 of the Gospel of Mark. Nation shall rise against nation being one of the signs of the end of the world given by Christ in Mark chapter 13 verse 8, meaning the goat fig nation rising up against itself, which is what breaks the great horn of the he-goat, which is the United Nations, after which Revelation chapter 13 begins, which is when the New World Order will come into being at the woe of the fifth trumpet, but only after the breaking of the great horn of the he-goat, which is caused by the two warring factions of globalists, the multipolar globalists versus the unipolar globalists, with Kenites in leadership positions on either side. Christ also gives troubles as another sign in Mark chapter 13 verse 8, but notice in Matthew chapter 24 as well as Luke chapter 21, he says pestilences rather than troubles, letting you know that a literal pandemic itself isn't what to pay attention to, but rather the global consequences, like the defunding of the World Health Organization that happened back in April, part of the United Nations, which again is the great horn of the he-goat of Daniel chapter 8 verse 8, as well as the one who sends a raiser of taxes in Daniel chapter 11 verse 20, a global carbon tax being the ultimate eventuality of the Paris Climate Agreement, which is an agreement within the United Nations framework on climate change. So again, pestilences in Matthew 24 and Luke 21 is in the place of troubles in Mark 13, which according to the Strong's Concordance means a disturbance, i.e. of water roiling, or of a mob sedition, which lines up with the hidden dynasty of education, which was globalized in 1830 when the first trumpet of Revelation chapter 8 began to sound, and in the following years you had the technology come into being that made the mainstream media a reality, which is where most of the brainwashing comes from. And then in 1913, the second trumpet began to sound with the globalization of the hidden dynasty of economics with the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, followed by the two world wars, which are also written of in Daniel chapter 8 as well as Daniel chapter 11, which ended with the formation of the United Nations in 1945 when the hidden dynasty of politics was globalized when the great horn of the he-goat came into being, and then in 1948 Kenite-occupied Israel came into being through the United Nations, which was the globalization of the hidden dynasty of religion, setting the stage for Satan to appear in Jerusalem at 666 in the middle of the 5-month-long hour of temptation. 1969 being when the fifth trumpet began to sound, but 5 is grace in biblical numerics, and not only does the planting of the seed of the seal of God have to be accomplished, but also the great horn of the he-goat has to be broken, so to speak, before the woe of the fifth trumpet can transpire, which is when Satan and his angels are cast from heaven to earth, which is when the New World Order will emerge, having 7 heads, which are symbolic of the 7 continents, with a mouth like a lion, feet like a bear, and it'll be like a leopard, which is what the he-goat will become at that time. A leopard, so to speak, which will have 4 heads, as you can see in Daniel chapter 7, meaning education, economics, politics, and religion, the infrastructure of the one world system, with the lion being the Christian nations during that first half hour of the 5-month-long hour of temptation, and the bear being symbolic of the non-Christian nations, the Ezekiel 38 Confederacy, in other words. And this one world system will also have 10 horns, which are 10 fallen angel kings cast from heaven to earth, along with Satan and the rest of his fallen angel locust army. Daniel's 4th beast, which is exclusively supernatural, and then after the deadly wound to the one world system, which is when kingdom shall rise against kingdom, Satan will appear in Jerusalem instead of Christ, which is what Antichrist means at the woe of the 6th trumpet. The true Christ won't return at all until the woe of the 7th trumpet, and as the true Christ says in the last verse of Mark chapter 13, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch.